We are in Belmar, New Jersey, right on the beach, and we continue our conversation with Monmouth County Sheriff Shaun Golden. Let's talk about your relationship with ICE. As it stands right now, explain to people how you work with ICE.
Sure. Well, at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office and a number of other county jails, we had a 287G program. It's a subsection of the federal code that allows us to essentially screen inmates that come into the facility for immigration status and look to see if they're wanted for any criminal activity. And so that's been a program that's been going on for over a decade now.
And you're happy with it? It's working?
For us, it's worked,
well.
Larry. You know, what people have to understand is our sheriff's officers aren't out there in the streets scooping illegal immigrants up from the communities. This is simply run for status. If you come into the Monmouth County Correctional Facility, we check your background, check for status. And it's when I say that, it's everyone. It's not discriminatory in any way. And then if there's a hit for a wanted criminal alien, that report goes to ICE, and ICE picks up on a detainer.
Now, the state's attorney general has come out with a state directive, and it seems to contradict what you're doing. However, your agreement with the feds, with federal immigration, it runs out June 30th, right?
Sure.
You've asked to re-up it.
We have. The attorney general directive isn't in total disagreement with it. It just says if you operated the 287G program, you can continue to do so with application to the Attorney General.
But he has to approve it.
Sure, sir. So we'll work with the Attorney General and the Attorney General's office.
So you're not going to fight him on this? If he says to you, you can't do this, or we want you to change this or that, you'll do it?
Well, listen, to me, I don't think we need to do battle with each other in law enforcement. You know what I mean? We're all on the same team. So if that's the directive that the Attorney General is going to see, we'll see when we make application. You know, we will do. I know there's a couple others that are in the same situation. And we'll continue to do so.
No reason to talk about a fight that may not happen.
No, I agree. And you know, listen, we have a hard enough time in law enforcement throughout the state and the country without fighting each other. So, you know, we'll try to work for the best solution to that policy.
Let's talk about the recreational marijuana legislation that seems to have failed, at least for the time being. You were vociferously against that bill, so you must take this as a victory?
Well, listen, I think we have more education to do. Right? It's a short-term victory, if that. I mean, I understand the Senate President wants to put it up for referendum to the voters next year, which means we have a lot more education to do with our voters. So, you know, I've spoke about this. Hopefully, they'll take up the medical marijuana legislation and certainly the decriminalization aspect of it. I know there's some bills being put forth this week that will talk about decriminalization. So I think we have to attack those. Remember, I've always been, this has been three silos for me. And for a lot in law enforcement, you know, the decriminalization, the medicalization of marijuana, and then the recreational use of marijuana. And so, you know, I have been vehemently opposed to the recreational marijuana. Particularly, I said before, even if you were for the recreational marijuana portion of this law, it's a bad policy. There were a number of issues in that policy that were bad for local municipalities, and I continue to believe that. And so that's where we have to educate the public.
Let me understand this, though. So if they were to now pass the expansion of medical marijuana, which sounds like it's going to happen, and if they were to pass decriminalization of marijuana, do you see any reason to pass recreational marijuana at that point if you get those two?
I don't in particular, but you know, there'll be
explain
those.
That, though.
You know, the people will decide. If he's going to put up for referendum, the people will decide. Certainly in other states, they've had referendum in Colorado, and this is how it ended up. You know what one problem is with the referendum for recreational marijuana is ultimately it has to go back to the state legislature. Right. For execution and implementation.
And the votes aren't there.
That's where the policy differences come about background checks for shop owners, about local municipality, what their fee is, do they get the license, is there a per capita license, meaning only so many of those marijuana shops in their town. All of those policy questions will still remain, unfortunately, I believe, well after the referendum question. So if the people of New Jersey decide to vote for recreational marijuana, I still think we'll be back here a year from now discussing those policy initiatives that have to go in to that implementation of the law.
And the reason I asked you about medical and decriminalization was, and I knew your answer, what your answer was going to be, was because if you know it kind of weakens the recreational bill, Senate President Sweeney is going to know that too. So would he hold off those bills to try to get this passed?
I don't know. I mean, listen, I know Senator Rice has certainly been pushing the decriminalization. I have as well. You know that. You've heard me in testimony saying, hey, let's break out the decriminalization and then seek the others, at will, whether it's a referendum or a later date for the vote. So listen, I think that the proponents of the marijuana initiative do feel that way, that if you silo those two out, the medical and the decriminalization, it certainly makes it much more difficult to pass the recreational portion.
So do you believe that he is going to hold off on those votes till the 20th and get they'll just so he can get recreational?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I know there's some push from within both caucuses to go ahead with at least the medical marijuana. Certainly our Senator Declan O'Scanlan, who has been back and forth, very deliberative with his thoughts on marijuana recreational, has put forth his initiatives to advance the medical marijuana bill. So, and then Ron Rice with the decriminalization. So I think there's different senators that have different opinions and want to effort those two different silos on medical and decriminalization.
Doesn't get voted on without Steve Sweeney.
I agree. And so the Senate President, I think, certainly realizes that, and at the end of the day, the recreational in its current form was a tough bill to pass because of the policies, and I just don't think it gives enough parochial local control to the municipalities, even if they were to do it.
Thank you.
Great.
Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Monmouth County Sheriff Shaun Golden. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come on Jersey Matters, victims of Sandy may finally get the money they were promised. We'll explain when Jersey Matters continues.